Over the last 20 or so episodes of Attached to Hygiene, we have talked a lot about menstrual health. Whether it be in our 6-episode series on the menstrual health market or in our regional market overviews, we've covered a lot of topics and information relating to menstrual health and period care. But one market that we've admittedly neglected is the India market. The global period care market is expected to grow by around 30 billion units by 2026. And roughly half of that growth is expected to come from India alone. So, clearly it is a market with a ton of growth potential. But while some brands have found success in the market, that growth potential, combined with how consumer expectations are changing, means that it is becoming an increasingly challenging place to succeed. Luckily, Bostik is here to help. Welcome to Attached to Hygiene, the podcast that enables you to grow your knowledge and influence in the absorbent hygiene industry. My name is Jack Hughes, and my mission is to help you, the absorbent hygiene article producer, design and produce the best possible products to meet the needs of your customers. On today's episode, we're speaking with Chirag Virani, co-founder of Sparkle. He and his co-founder Hetzel launched their first pad into the India market in 2019 and have been working to grow their young business ever since. But while he is new to the hygiene industry, he knows what he's talking about when it comes to the India market, given that he and Hetzel have been able to grow their young company despite starting just before the COVID-19 pandemic. In the first part of this interview, Chirag will be sharing his insights on the Indian period care market, like size and growth potential, which products are currently succeeding, and how the consumer expectations and preferences in the market are changing. Then, on our next episode, he'll share some of the challenges Sparkle has seen from a producer standpoint, as well as the ones he has seen as a male founder in the industry. Joining me today to discuss the menstrual health market in India is Chirag Virani. Chirag, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
We're happy to have you too. So, as with all our guests, I like to have them introduce themselves. So I'll have you introduce yourself, your role, and your background in the industry.
For sure. Let me just start by, again, already you mentioned my name. So I'm Chirag Virani. I'm co-founder at Sparkle. So we are two co-founders. I pretty much look after the creative and the technical side of the business. So I come from the technical background. I'm an engineer. So I look at the product development. I look at R&D. And a little bit outside my scope of work is I also look at marketing. Our other co-founder, Hetzel, she is a chartered accountant and a lawyer. She looks at all the number-related things. So all the financial stuff, legal stuff. She also happens to be my wife, just on the side note. So we are very much trying to develop sustainable period care products as our first part of our journey. And then we're also looking into a number of other products. But for now, we have developed a biodegradable, compostable sanitary pad. In terms of our journey in the industry, we're still very new in the industry. It's been just a couple of years. Like 2018 is when we developing our first prototype. 2019 is when we launched our first ever product in the market. And then 2020, the whole world shut down due to COVID. And then it gave us pretty much 2 years. We sort of went into hibernation and then working on developing the product. And finally, we fast forward to 2022. We have now installed our first production line of sanitary pads. Very nice machine, Italian line, fully automatic, is capable of producing around 1 million pads per day. So now with that, we are ready to enter not only in the Indian market, but also we are hoping to expand globally as well. But currently, for the next couple of quarters, our focus is heavily going to be on the Indian market.
It's very exciting. Going from, just starting up, a couple of years ago to now trying to expand outside of India. And I'm sure there are many, many challenges there. They attest to. And
definitely. See, I mean, in terms of the journey, like we pretty much put everything on the line here, and I'm not even joking. Like I'm talking about my house, like everything. We are crazy believer in the sustainability, and we are actually dedicated like next 30 to 40 years of our we have actually planned. So I'm still more of a vision and the long term guy, and Hetzel, she is more into the number and details. So. Like we are pretty much like this year, next year, 5 years, 10 years, and up to like 35 years is the journey that we're looking at, because it's ambitious goals, like as we go into talking about more, like there is a lot that we have planned. But as you mentioned, the journey has been very exciting so far.
I'm sure. But I'm sure it's a great combo to have the kind of visionary and that high level view, but also the very detailed view of we have to meet our goals and these numbers and
No, no,
keep the books
definitely.
clean.
Yeah, yeah.
A great combo. So I also like to ask all of our guests what they enjoy most about working in the industry. And I'm really interested to hear your perspective as someone who's only been in the industry for, a couple of years and is on the product side and the product development side. And so what have you found most interesting or most exciting about working in this industry?
Definitely. See, so far, we've had the privilege of working mainly with the suppliers. Now, slowly, we are getting into the understanding the industry players, meeting the other industry leaders as well. But so far, if we look at the first couple of years of our journey, it was mainly about discussing with some of the suppliers, and the suppliers so far, like they are, trying to help as much as they can in the sustainability space because everybody's trying to do their part and trying to develop innovative products. But again, it's been a journey of identifying the suppliers who are willing to go that extra mile for the raw material, because when we look at the conventional products versus a sustainable product, there is a lot of challenges, not just from the product development point of view, but also the supplier point of view when they manufacture or they make the raw materials and then they turn their raw material into our raw material. But so far they've been very friendly and very helpful. And then we've attended one conference so far that pretty much a lot of major industry players came in right after COVID. I think it was the first one-on-one conference held in Delhi. That's the first major industry introduction that I've had, or the exposure where we've met a lot of people that I pretty much, as a newcomer, I didn't know that they existed. So it was a more of like an introduction to what the industry is, what the people are like, who the players are, the suppliers, machine manufacturers, as well as some of the brand leaders. So just 2 to 3 months ago was the first industry event that I attended, and that has given me a very positive overlook what the industry is going towards. So everybody's open to what it was like 5 years ago in terms of sustainable products. Like it has, like I can literally feel that people are at least changing their mindset and going in that direction. So that was a good boost for me as well as a whole team. That at least the step that we're taking into it, we're going in the right direction, and everybody was very supportive, very helpful, and very excited that okay, at least people are trying to be aggressively going towards the sustainable product manufacturing side of it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's we get that a lot. Just kind of the evolution of the industry, how willing suppliers are to help not only each other but also the producers like you, and there's clearly incentive to do that as well. But it is an industry that is for sure big on partnerships and big on relationships and being able to help each other advance. And as you said, the transition to sustainability and the focus on that, would say everyone is trying to learn as we go. Some players are further ahead, some players are not as far ahead. But I know, at least from our perspective, we're doing our best to try and learn, but also teach other people in the industry what we're learning. And so that's, definitely one of the things I appreciate about the industry is a lot of people in here that are willing to help each other out and, pass along information that we've learned so that we can all kind of progress on a similar path.
Definitely.
So as I mentioned at the beginning, the reason we invited you here today is to discuss the menstrual health and period care market in India in particular. So want to start by kind of level setting the audience, making sure everyone's kind of on the same page. Can we start with, helping us understand the menstrual health and period care market in India in terms of size and potential and, some of the product use and product popularity?
For sure. Let's just put things into perspective when by first putting the global scenario into place, right? So if we look at the global hygiene care market, we're looking at roughly 530 billion units. Out of that, around half of it, so around 54% of it, it is a period care market. So we're looking at around 190 billion units. And when we look at Indian market, it is around 5% of the 300 billion units. So we're looking at around 14 to 15 billion units in India. The interesting thing is when we look at the growth or what people are estimating, so if we fast forward to, let's say, by 2026, it is estimated that the industry will grow by around 11%. So another 30 billion units will be added. And out of that, almost half of it, so 15 billion units, are expected to be added from the Indian market. So looking at the Indian market right now is standing at around 14 billion units. and then adding another 15 billion units or so in just 5 years, is we're talking at 100% growth. So this is a big potential in the market, and there's a lot of reasons for that as well. There is a lot of initiatives from the government side, from the Indian, in terms of awareness, income growth. So there is a lot of things that are going in the right way for this big jump to happen in the next couple of years. If you look at the numbers, a couple of years ago when I started just in 2018, 2017, I used to hear in the industry, like the figures used to be 12 to 15% of the menstruators have access to these products. And then just in the couple of 3 to 4 years, this figure now I'm hearing from the latest surveys, it's about 30 to 35%. So we're looking at just in the 3 to 4 years, these figures are changing dramatically, and if you're looking at the population demographics as well, out of around 350 million menstruating women, according to most surveys, it's about 36% of women or menstruators have access to pads. And when we look at, in the next couple of years, when we expect it to double, so there is a huge, gap to be addressed in the market as well. And whether it's from a standpoint of just accessibility, but also there is a huge gap because the more people start using these products, the more plastic pollution. There is a different challenges that we'll have to address. So that is where the sustainability comes into place. That how can we, maybe redesign the product or redesign some of the ingredients while not compromising on the performance, but also, addressing these millions of tons of waste that will be generated, as more people start using these products. And looking at like the types of product that are being currently used, and in the what I think the direction might go in is so right now most of the people are currently using sanitary pads due to a number of reasons, either whether it's cultural reasons or a small proportion might be because of health reason. But anything that like tampons are not really popular in India at this point because anything that might be inserted into the body, it has cultural limitations. Slowly people are open to adapting new products as well. But as of now, the vast majority of the menstruators in India are still using sanitary pads, or they prefer using sanitary pads, as this has been the most popular choice of products. And then one of the interesting thing I learned as a guy as well, that when we were doing a lot of surveys, we found out that a menstruator pretty much uses the same product that was introduced to them at the very beginning when they got the first periods, like whether it's by their sibling or their mother. And then the switch very rarely happens because it's that trust, that intimacy, that if you are attached to one product or one brand, you're not really easily going to shift that perception unless you do a little bit of searching, and then either you are looking at other alternatives, or if you're having, for example, in my wife's case, like one of the reasons where we started this company is also she personally experienced many issues with rashes and irritation. So that was one of the reasons where we wanted to explore, what are the alternatives that we can use. So there are many reasons. So if the first challenge right now is the accessibility, then after that, sustainability is a still emerging market, but that's why we picked sanitary pad compared to a lot of other sustainable alternatives, which are still at a very early stage in India.
Yeah, I think it's great that, even with the very rapid and necessary growth in the market, that companies like yourself and consumers there are demanding these sustainable products, because I think it could be easy for a market like India to say, we're going to get the most amount of products out there as possible. Most likely the easiest and most affordable way to do that is through plastics and the current plastic products on the market. But there are companies like yours and others that are stepping up and saying, no, we can meet a need here with sustainable products, and, giving credit to the consumers there. There are plenty of consumers there that want that and recognize that that's not a long-term solution, and that they want those options to be able to use menstrual products that are environmentally friendly. So I think that that's great. And yeah, you talked about the use of pads and the popularity there, and that's something that I had heard as well, and we heard it in some previous episodes, and that's not unique to India by any means, but it shows you some of the hurdles that companies that aren't producing pads or some of these other more not more sustainable, but other sustainable options, whether it be menstrual cups or discs, could face, not just from maybe the products being new or novel and unfamiliar, but just cultural challenges. I think that's really, really interesting, and something that I'm sure brands are not scrambling, but certainly trying to figure out and talk to people in the market and figure out how you can kind of overcome that challenge, because it's those cultural ties and cultural influences are incredibly challenging to get past at times.
Definitely, yeah. So there is a lot of work to be done just from the awareness point of view as well. Sustainability is one aspect of the multidimensional challenges that we have to consider, especially for when you're addressing social cultural taboos. So this is definitely it's a multi-dimensional challenge that we'll have to address.
Absolutely. So before we dive into some of the consumer preferences, if you will, and what they are looking for outside of, we talked about sustainability. I was wondering if you could touch on, some of the brands that are popular there, just for people who aren't familiar with the Indian market and are wondering, what products are popular and what are consumers used to.
Let's hope I don't get into trouble by naming the brands, but I'll try to be as discreet as possible. So just like any other market in the industry worldwide, there are how shall I put it? They're the big guys, So the P&G and J&J and KC. So the top three players globally are also, unsurprisingly, they're still the biggest players in India as well. So when we're looking at 75 to 80% of the market is dominated by the global industry leaders, and so when we look at the current penetration in the market as well, so when we look at the Indian domestic producers, so we are looking at a very small proportion of the entire Indian market that is currently catering to the customers. And out of that, when we look at the sustainable products manufacturer, when we look at the large scale manufacturing where you will have a production line that can make a significant impact, I believe we are the first one in the industry in this space at this scale. There are a lot of smaller players that are operating smaller scale machineries, whether developed in-house or through a third party, low speed manufacturing. With that, there are limitations in terms of the volume they can address. So when we look at the size, when we're looking at 15 billion units of products to be made or to be catered to, like even addressing 1 million pads, even if you are operating at full capacity 24/7, you're still going to just put a little dent into the market, So it's a big market where you need scale and volume to actually make a significant impact. So in terms of the conventional products market, I would say Whisper Always, which is in India, the Stay Free. There are other similar brands that are leading worldwide, so that are present obviously, and they are still covering 70 to 80% of the market in India. There are other domestic brands as well, such as there is Nine, there is Pari, there is Nobel Rio. So there are domestic players as well. They're slowly getting into the market. They are understanding the raw materials. They're understanding and there are people who are coming up with 10 line, 15 line projects as well. So the industry dynamics is going to change perhaps in the future, but at this point, it's still dominated by the global industry leaders. And when we look at the sustainability side of it, very handful of players are there. And then there is another category, which is sort of, I like to call it as a hybrid sustainability, hybrid green category, where either they're using the product is sort of categorized into the sustainable side, but they will have like one layer of a cotton and then still be using plastic bag sheets. So this is the category that confuses the most to the customer. And that is where we need to be more, focus on the awareness part of it, that, we pretty much focus on spreading awareness about consumer must ask at least what goes inside the product when they are categorizing the sustainability side of it. So there are many challenges from not just about letting customer know about the sustainability, but also letting them know that the product that they're buying, thinking that it's sustainable, it is actually sustainable or not.
Yeah, that education challenge is certainly not, it's everywhere. It's trying to make sure, and I'm not sure you see it a ton in our industry. At least I haven't. But certainly, greenwashing is a problem, and not just in India, but everywhere. And so it's something that brands are fighting, and consumer awareness groups are fighting. And as someone like you who is offering a sustainable product, you have to fight that as well to make sure that you don't get lumped into with companies that are doing things the right way or whatnot. And again, certainly not accusing anyone in the hygiene industry of doing that. You see a lot of the companies in our industry trying to say percentage of a biosourced product or materials or things like that. But yeah, it's that consumer education piece, and we'll dive into some of the other sides of consumer education in India in a bit. But that's another piece of it, is just the products themselves and the sustainability side of things. So yeah, it sounds like no shortage of challenges there.
So what happens is, when the customer looks at the product, right? They compare your product directly to another product. When you look at sustainable products, so they'll be like, okay, there is 2 to 3 options available, right? and they look at your product. Why is it more expensive? Like they're trying to make so much money out of me, but it's not like because we're trying to be authentic. We're trying to make sure that the raw material that we use actually is inside the product, what we say it is. So that is what comes, the third party certification, it adds to the cost, right? So when we compete against somebody who is not being truly ethical in terms of what they are putting in the product, it is a challenge. That is why we, like on our website as well, we are putting like this layer has these many certifications. This is the layer that we are using. This is the layer this we're using. So even as you mentioned, the bio-based content. So if there is, as long as they're presenting standardized certification from recognized bodies, I think that pretty much levels the competition field. But until then, the consumer doesn't really understand, because as a manufacturer, as a raw material supplier, I mean, people really know who the credible certification bodies are. How do you can justify authenticity of the product? But a consumer, like for them, if somebody just claims it's a sustainable, they're not really, the price tag will also have its own weightage, and then they'll, okay, just makes your life a bit more easier, and then that is where the awareness comes in, as you mentioned.
Yeah, and it's something we talked about with previous guests on our show as well. Just finding ways to get consumers to look past the price tag. And certainly the amount of internet access is helping with that. And consumers are doing a lot more research and trying to learn more about products and making sure, particularly, hygiene products that are coming into contact with very intimate and personal areas. They want to make sure that those, are meeting their own standards. But yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. And we definitely hear about that from not only many guests on the podcast, but many people in the industry across the board.
Yeah.
So we started to touch a little bit on what consumers are expecting, but yeah, I just want to kind of dive a little deeper on what are consumers looking for from their products, particularly from their period care products, and how are these needs or customer demands differing across demographics, whether it be age or regions within India, or you already mentioned the income and challenges around that. So yeah, what are consumers looking for?
We can divide this market into, let's say, two segments. Like we will talk about or we can consider, like majority of the market is still highly price sensitive. So when we are still addressing the issues of accessibility, we are at 35% of usage in the market. So there is still a lot of focus still on the price and accessibility. So when we're looking at rural population, we're looking at people with not as high disposable income as other groups. Still, majority of the market is still price sensitive. But then there are very rapidly emerging group of people, young millennials, and surprisingly, around 50%, like half the population is around 30 years of age or below. So we're looking at a lot of young consumer who are saying that, I actually have heard one of our customers, like, I deserve to pamper myself with a quality product, So this is the mindset that is changing, like if they're going to spend, let's say, 200 to 300 rupees, like in dollars, like a couple of bucks at Starbucks, this is how the comparison they're doing, like, so it's like, I deserve this, it's a gift for myself. So this is the mindset that is slowly changing. So when we're looking at young millennials, Gen Z, people moving into the urban areas, metro cities. So this is where our major market is, purchasing a lot from the online D2C channel. So there are people, menstruators, who are willing to, not looking at the price tag as their decision-making matrix. And also sustainability is on their list of priorities when they make the purchasing decision. This group is slowly changing, and in the last couple of years, as we see, the usage of products has increased exponentially. And with that accessibility, the number of people who are actually preferring to use the sustainable products with the awareness, it is also increasing very rapidly.
So it sounds like it's that combination of high standards for themselves, and obviously that comes with the ability to have the disposable income there, combined with, I guess, high standards for the planet, or the environment, if you will. So sure. Those two things, at least for
also,
your,
like when you look at the health point of view, right? Like there is many, like we have had many gynecologists. They recommended our products. Like we actually didn't know. Like one of the customers said, my gynaec recommended your product. So it is about somebody was allergic to some of the components in the whether it's fragrance or it's super absorbents, or something. So pretty much there is a shift from health point of view as well. Because it has And the word of mouth is the biggest, most effective way of spreading the awareness. So like there have been customers there was like, okay, we want to thank you. Like this is the first time in my life I didn't get a rash. So we are when you get these type of feedback, you can see that it's much more than just another sustainable product, because when you actually use a product without a lot of chemicals or other ingredients, it has effect on the health as well, and the user the feels that. So when they start talking to their friends, families, as I was mentioning earlier, like if somebody if your friend or your elder sibling, if they introduce you to the product, it's pretty much like your customer retention ratio. Like for now, we have come to a point where we are expanding our pool, because there was a point where we were growing at early stage. It was 100% customer retention. So people who are buying the product, it's like they're coming back. And then we're slowly, as we are expanding our reach, and the analytics is changing slowly. But we are seeing is people who switch to sustainable, they are very highly not switch back to the conventional product.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I'm sure it's also great to hear that there are people you are unaware of out there that are recommending the products. I'm sure that's always a little tidbit. I'm curious if your target audience, your target consumers are really kind of the urban or mostly urban. Are there any need differences for maybe more rural menstruators in India? That do the consumer needs change at all as you move from kind of an urban environment to a rural environment in India?
Because see, first of all, we'll have to look at it from a couple of perspectives. Like first, if we look at the accessibility and the availability, so if we look at the distribution network, so as I was mentioning, like we are currently the biggest player in industry, and we still haven't penetrated through the rural areas. We're still focusing on the major cities, where we're still establishing like we launched a product last month. So we're looking at a very early stage in the industry. So like there are people who like it's crazy, like it's to a point how much ingrained some brands name have become in people's mind. Like they don't ask for sanitary pad, they say, okay, give me Always, or give me Whisper. It has identified with the product itself. So when it's present in every small village in the far corner, far remote area. So when you look at the distribution and penetration and the product awareness, people, for them to make a switch, like they must at least know that it exists, right? And it must be available. So there are multiple challenges just from the distribution and the penetration point of view, where that is where when we talk about the online market, which is becoming huge in India. Like I think India will, I think, surpass the user of internet and mobile phones, I think, more than the US in the next couple of years. So when we look at the population with access to phone, smartphone, and just shopping online, with Amazon being huge in India. So like people are like that has expanded the penetration of market. So we don't have to be present in the physical store, but if somebody likes the product, looks at the review, they'll just place an order. So that has increased our reach, but just from the bricks and mortar. And then the second part that I'll come in is the awareness and the cultural part of it. When we look at the online, placing the order online, there's still a group of population that feels comfortable. Is again, comes down to the same bracket of customer segment that we were initially discussing. So it's urban areas where independent people who are, in a higher income bracket. So like we have had inquiries where when they place an order online, they're like, only deliver your product between this much and this much time, so my dad won't be there to receive the product. So like there's still a lot of issues in terms of awareness, and then that is why people are still in rural areas. They're still highly likely to purchase a product from a physical store, so they don't have to rely on somebody looking at what is coming. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's still there. So like even you'll see that when you go a little further from the urban cities to rural areas, like it's like if you are going, like if you came to India for the first time, and you'd be looking at a transaction happening between a shopkeeper and a customer, like they'll put it in a black bag. Like it's like they're not even showing that she's purchasing the sanitary pad. And even the purchaser would ask the same thing, or at least this is what we need to break. Then we talk about it's a natural process, it's a product that you're trying to use it for, like any other product. So this is one of the reasons where why it's still looking at the penetration from urban to rural. So that is where, like, we are starting off with people who are comfortable ordering products online, or who are more aware, they understand the health benefit, the environmental benefits, And then slowly, as more people get convinced, the word spreads. And we are also focusing a lot on spreading awareness. So we are doing a lot of awareness campaigns. We are doing a lot of in-person seminars, even in rural India, because so when we look at the rural parts, our focus shifts slightly from purely sustainability to simply just awareness, because when we go to these, we work a lot with a lot of NGOs about spreading awareness. And so we always bring a gynecologist or a doctor who can actually discuss about many things that, menstruators are not aware. Because if you look at one of the shocking statistics is 70% of the menstruators only find out about periods when they get their first period, right? So this is the number that we are dealing with right now. So like when we look at rural areas, the challenge changes because there first it's accessibility, awareness, how to manage your period safely and hygienically. Even if they're using a reusable pad, making sure that it is they're drying it properly in open sunlight, so it doesn't remain damp and causes infection. Because again, so even with reusable products, like we are trying to spread awareness, like because there is a lot of, when you look at the affordability, reusable products become more of the preferred option. And that is where hygiene, cleanliness, awareness, again, there another challenge is, when you dry it out in the sun, again, it comes to a point where menstruators are not really comfortable drying it out in the open, and people seeing what they're drying. So it's a very complex challenge. As soon as you grow from the urban population that is more aware, more educated, and then as you move towards the tier 2, tier 3 cities, that is where the challenge slightly transforms, where we actually have to teach them what the sanitary pad is, how to use it, and then from that, in the next couple of years, I think that's why when I said in the beginning, it's a 30-year journey that we have planned. It's not like we will be able to do it tomorrow. So first is educating people about the environmental aspect who have the access. So the 36% of the population who's already using sanitary pads, we are targeting those that, okay, what you're using, how it will affect the environment, how it will affect your health. And at the same time, the journey is still going from 36 to 90, 95%, like most other countries. That in its own is another challenge that where first we'll have to at least let people know what the product is, how to use. And so hopefully in the next decade or so, we'll be able to at least have people will have access to sanitary pads, and then we'll take it to the next level.
Yeah. You mentioned that 36%, and I'm just curious, are you seeing other products beginning to grow in popularity? You mentioned some of the cultural taboos around tampons, and I'm sure that menstrual cups and menstrual discs are facing those same challenges. But are you seeing penetration of those in the market?
Yes. So when we look at tampons, not so much, but definitely menstrual cups. Menstrual cups discs, I wouldn't say that it's still gotten a lot of penetration, but menstrual cups, I'm seeing a lot of new companies, new startups trying to spread awareness about menstrual cups. And reusable cloth pads are also slowly gaining popularity. But again, all these products are still targeting a very niche market for now, because even in the sustainability sector, like we are talking about, if out of 36, let's say a small portion of it is using sustainable sanitary pads, even a smaller percentage of it, like maybe 1 or 2%, I think, would go for menstrual cup or reusable cloth pads. And that is, again, comes with convenience, comfort, personal choice, preference. So still, like for the sustainable products that are reusable, the market is at the moment is very small. It is growing, but the preference is still pretty much about sanitary pads because just it's familiar.
Yeah, that makes sense. And certainly the challenges we talked about in growing that type of business, and not just getting a product in front of them, but making sure that they're aware and the benefits and education and all that. That's it's I don't envy you.
No, that's so. See, challenges bring opportunities, right? So that is how you look at it. So there is a lot of work to do, but then you'll have to start somewhere, right? So it's there is a big scope that somebody needs to do, and there are a lot of startups that are doing amazing job. So like we are also one of them, and then it's a collaborative effort. So like it's not that we are the only one and we are doing it the best possible way. There is it's a community of people that are trying to do what is best, whether it's about spreading awareness about menstrual cups or reusables, anything that is working towards a collective goal of reducing the plastic pollution is pretty much the overall goal that we're all working towards. So it is slowly changing for sure. I mean, from the consumer point of view, as well as because new companies only come in the segment when they see that the consumers' demand is there. So this is my optimism talking, but I think in the next couple of years, we will see a big shift.
Yeah, I definitely agree there, just based on what I've learned and what you're telling me. Like, there will definitely be a shift, yeah, in the coming years, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
So there you have it. You now have a nice introduction to the period care market in India, and all of that context will prepare you for our next episode, where Chirag will be back to discuss some of the challenges producers are facing in the market. Attached to Hygiene is brought to you by Bostic and is hosted by me, Jack Hughes. It is produced and edited by me with the help of Paul Andrews, Michelle Tonkovitz, Emery Chernus, and Nikki Ackerman at Green Onion Creative. Our theme music is by Jonathan Boyle. We'd like to extend a special thank you to our guest today, Chirag Virani. You can follow Chirag and his wife Hetal on LinkedIn, and follow Sparkle on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.